You're listening to the Fitzy and Whipper podcast.
Tracy Grimshaw, you've missed out on the Harry Styles tickets. Sorry, Trace.
Oh, damn.
I mean, that's one.
Harry. I've interviewed Harry.
How did it go? How did you find them? Was that Harry or One Direction, Trace?
It was 1D. It was back in the 1D days, and 1D came to Channel 9 in Willoughby and did a show for our audience, and we did a whole ACA on 1D.
Oh, man.
How good is that?
Can you see the magnetism with those boys? Can you understand why girls fall over for them? We had a live audience of teenage girls, and I absolutely could see how they were doing it. Harry definitely has something.
Oh, yeah.
All of those boys has something. You can see why he's become the superstar, in their post-1D career.
Tracy, over the years, with some of the big acts that you've had, is there someone that you've ever been intimidated by, like just with their looks or just how good they are in their field or their industry? Has anyone intimidated you?
Look, everybody intimidated me when I was young. Then I was learning because I didn't know what I was doing. But you have to really learn to put that aside, because otherwise you're not going to do a very good job. You have to just see them as a person, not as an icon or a power player. Yeah. You just got to do your job.
I mean, Tracy, I heard a great interview with yourself and Ray Hadley on 2GB, which I loved. But what was terrific too was the strength that you showed when you were younger in your career starting out, where it was kind of a given that this was a male's role, this is a male's world, and you managed to push through, put that aside, and become one of the best, obviously, in your field, which I thought was sensational. But when you look at some of the tough interviews, as we go back to what Fitzy said, looking at politicians, I mean, there's a difference between being a professional politician and just having those answers where you fudge over it and being a tough politician. Who do you think was tough?
Well, I think politicians these days are a bit media trained and they're media savvy, and they talk in sort of, slogans, if you like. They decide what the line of the day is, and you have to break through that. I remember the days of, Bob Hawke, who'd have a stoush with you. He'd come onto the set and I didn't interview Bob Hawke on the set because I was a young, junior burger then, but, he'd have a stoush with Mike Willisey, for example, and, Goss Whitlam would hold his own, and Malcolm Fraser, and Paul Keating would hold his own.
Yeah.
Those were the days when they would stand their dig and they'd defend their turf and they'd back themselves, and they weren't talking in slogans. I think, those of us of my age remember that era well.
Oh, but Tracy, you were the best at just cutting through the BS, and this was the thing, because a lot of politicians, and Trump's probably the best at it, but they can talk there. They know that they're in the wrong with any question that's being directed at them, but they can just talk absolute rhubarb around it, Tracy, and not even get to the point. You're the one that can shut that down. Is that hard to do? Do you after an interview like that? Well, the Scott Morrison one that you had, Tracy, which was the famous one where you accused him of, you didn't accuse him. That some of the things that happened, with the floods and the bushfires and him not being there. After an interview like that, is it like a sporting game where you sort of shake hands and say, look, it's all part of the job, or are there moments where they really walk away from you very angry, Trace?
Well, the one with Scott Morrison when... with the list about the floods and the PPE and the tinnies and things, he wasn't in studio. He was at an airport because he was on the campaign. So I don't know that he was necessarily happy after that one. I don't know, because I'll never do him again because he lost the election a couple of days later. There was one in Canberra where, I was sitting in the room with him. It was after the women's protests, and he didn't seem all that unhappy afterwards. I mean, he was busy. He didn't hang around to, have a chat. I don't, sometimes people are unhappy with an interview and they'll get up and storm out. Sometimes they'll chat with you afterwards. Everyone's a bit different.
Well, I do know one interview where you lost complete control of the guests that came in. It almost seemed like a surprise interview. It was this one that you did.
Sit down. Everyone, it's all right. Sit, dogs, sit. Sit. Okay, dogs. Okay. Sit. Good girls.
And, a really tough interview. They wouldn't listen at all. That was COVID times.
Short
and you're doing
answers.
the
Never work
show
with
from
kids
home.
or animals, Trace. Isn't that the rule?
That was the dog. That was when that was when we were working from home, and it worked for exactly 2 days. I mean, I quite liked being at home, even though our camera crew tore all the spare bedrooms apart to set up the studio. And the dogs loved me being at home, but they didn't understand.
There's so many great moments on this show.
Can we talk about a current affair? Because, Trace, over the years, I mean, look, we've had a laugh at some of the stories that you've had on there, but you know what? You are born a certain person to be an ACA reporter, and you know what? We have Fordo in the building now, who did it for quite a long time, and Martin King as well. These guys who need to go into the face of people who can be quite violent. It's unbelievable. You need to be a certain breed to do that job, don't you, Trace?
They put their bodies on the line, and you're absolutely right. And I've never been an ACA reporter, and that's why, because I'm not prepared to put my body on the line. I've actually never chased anybody down the street.
No,
right.
In my entire life, which really means that I'm an absolute fraud as an ACA host. I've literally never chased anyone down the street or stuck my foot in a door. But thank goodness they're prepared to do it, because some people just don't want to be caught.
Yeah. Well, Trace, we want to say congratulations on the career too at your time at ACA, and we can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you. I'm not doing anything for a year, and then I'll probably bob my head up somewhere.
Love
it. So SAS Australia, Trace?
Oh.
Sure, I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here.
Oh, do it.
Coming up market.
Thanks, Trace.
Trace, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Fitzy and Whipper podcast.